Hello, everyone. Today we are talking about comparing and ordering fractions. This is lesson 6 in your book. If you want to follow along, I'm on page 517. So this is your assignment for today. And in the past, we've been talking about fractions quite a bit. Simplest form and putting numbers in simplest form using greatest common factors. And so today we're going to switch gears a little bit. And in order to compare and order fractions, we have to find something called the least common multiple. Now, we've been talking about greatest common factor, and the common factor are the two numbers that multiply together to make the number we're talking about. In this case, we're finding the least common multiple. So numbers that are the answers, the products of multiplying a certain number by another one. So we're going to just jump right into it, and hopefully this will help you. So it says to compare fractions, create equivalent fractions with the same denominators or the same numerators. Use the least common multiple or the least multiple common to sets of multiples. So what that means is we are going to compare fractions, but in order to do that, we need to make their denominators the same. And the way we're going to do that is by finding the least common multiple. So let's just jump right into example 1, and I think that you will understand better. Ramon has an insect collection. The table shows the lengths of 4 insects in his collection. Which is longer, a mosquito or a whirligig beetle? So the two that I'm looking at over here are mosquito. This one here, its length is 1/4 of an inch. And this beetle, that is 3/8 of an inch. So I'm looking at these two numbers here. And you can see it's hard for me to tell you which one is longer because their denominators are different. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to find multiples of 4 and multiples of 8, just looking at those denominators there. So I've started listing my multiples of 4. Multiples are the answers, or what happens when you skip count. 4, 8, 12, 16. So those are some multiples of 4 for the mosquito denominator. Multiples of 8, 8, 16, 24. Those are some multiples of 8 for the beetle. So I'm looking for the least common multiple, so the smallest one that they have in common. So looking here, multiples of 4, there's 4, 8, 12, 16. Multiples of 8, 8, 16, 24. The smallest one that they have in common is 8. So the least common multiple of the denominators is 8. And so now my next step, now that I've found the least common multiple, is to create an equivalent fraction using 8 as the denominator. So I want to take 1/4 and 3/8 and make sure they both have an 8 as the denominator. For the beetle, it's already in 8s, so I don't need to worry about this one. They just multiplied by 1 and created the 8s, but you don't need to touch it. The one that we have to change is the mosquito. So the mosquito is 1/4 of an inch long. In order to change the denominator to be 8s, I need to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 2, because 4 times 2 is 8. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 1 times 2 is 2, 4 times 2 is 8. So 1/4 is equivalent to 2/8. So now I can compare which insect is longer because they have a common denominator. So the mosquito is 2/8 of an inch long, and the whirligig beetle is 3/8 of an inch long. So looking at them, when the denominators are the same, the fraction with the greater numerator is the greater fraction. So in this case, 2/8 is less than 3/8. Okay, so a beetle is longer. Okay, cool. So we're going to flip our page and look over here now. Okay, so example 2. The table shows the cooking times needed for different foods. Order the foods in order from least to greatest cooking times. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here, this time I'm going to find the least common multiple of the numerators. So looking at these three fractions now, I'm going to list the multiples of the numerators. So I have 1 is a numerator, 5 is a numerator, and 2 is a numerator. So here I've listed all of the multiples of 1, 5, and 2. The least common multiple that they all share is 10. You can see it highlighted in red here. So I'm going to fill that out here. Now I need to create equivalent fractions that use 10 as the numerator. So because 10 is the least common multiple, for the numerators, I'm going to create equivalent fractions that use 10 as their numerator. So in order to change 1/4 to have a numerator of 10, I need to multiply the 1 by 10. And whatever I do to the top, I do to the bottom. So my 1/4 is now 10/40. Lasagna, I need to turn the numerator into 10. So what do I do to 5 to make it a 10? I multiply it by 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Whatever I do to the top, I do to the bottom. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay? And the enchiladas, 2/3. What do I have to do to 2 to make it a 10? I multiply it by 5. So 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15. Okay? Now, I'm going to compare the denominators. When the numerators are the same, and now I've made them all 10s, the fraction with the greatest denominator is the smallest fraction. Okay, you have to think a little bit backwards there. I'm going to say that again. When the numerators, the numbers on top, are the same, the fraction with the greatest, the biggest denominator is the smallest or the least fraction. So looking here, 10/40 is my smallest fraction because its denominator is so big. I only have 10 out of 40 possible pieces here. That means those pieces are really small. Okay, here I have 10 out of 15 pieces. So those are going to be a little bit bigger pieces. And here I have 10 out of 12 pieces. And so those are going to be even bigger pieces. So the biggest denominator, when the numerators are the same, is actually the smallest fraction. So from least to greatest cooking times, the foods are rice, then enchiladas, then lasagna. Okay, so you can compare fractions by either changing the denominators to be the same or changing the numerators to be the same. Whichever one makes more sense in your brain is likely the one that I'm going to want you to choose. Okay, you can see here, here's a great example of the models here. So this is what a 1/4 fraction looks like, what a 2/3 fraction looks like, and what a 5/6 fraction looks like. So you can see here I have more of the whole filled out than I do with this one. So again, when the numerators are the same, the fraction with the greatest denominator is the least fraction. So 1/4 is equivalent to 10/40. So the greatest denominator is actually the smallest. Okay, but you have to make the numerators the same first. Okay, we're going to skip guided practice down here, and I'm going to actually start the independent practice with you so you can see how I want you to accomplish this. Okay, so we're going to compare using greater than, less than, or equal to. Check your answer using fraction tiles or number lines. This is going to be hard for you because you don't have these at home. We're going to go over the answers on Zoom tomorrow. So I just want you to show me your work using the multiplication. So here, I'm going to make these have the same denominator. So I know that I could turn 3 into 6 very easily to make these the same denominator. So I'm going to make 1/3 into 6 by multiplying 3 times 2. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So now I'm going to multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And so 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. I'm comparing 2/6 and 2/6. 2/6 and 2/6 are the same. They are equal. Okay? Let's do another one. Let's look here at 4/10 and 1/2. Okay? I'm going to turn my 1/2 into 10s because I know if I multiply 2 by 5, I can get to 10 very easily. So 1 times 2 1/2, and I'm going to multiply my 2 times 5 to make it tenths. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I'm going to multiply straight across, 5 and 10. So my 1/2 is equivalent to 5/10. Which one's bigger, 4/10 or 5/10? 5/10 is bigger. So really, 1/2 is greater than 4/10. Okay, now going down here, these last questions, you need to order from least to greatest. So instead of comparing like you were up here, you need to put these 3 fractions in order from least to greatest. When I am assigned with a task like this, I look at the denominators I have and see which ones I know I can turn into each other easily. So I have 4/6, 1/3, and 3/3. I think I'm going to change these ones into thirds. These ones into sixths so that I can compare it with this one. So if I wanted to turn 1/3 into sixths, I'd multiply 3 times 2. And that becomes 2/6. Okay. And then 3/3 into sixths, I'd have to multiply by 2 also. 6/6. So now I have 4/6. My 1/3 is 2/6. And my 3/3 is 6/6. So in order from least to greatest means the smallest one has to go first. 4/6, 2/6, or 6/6. 2/6 is the least, followed by 4/6, followed by 6/6. Okay, so go ahead and try these questions on your own. Make sure that you circle the questions that you get stuck on and bring those questions with you to our Zoom meeting tomorrow. I will see you then. Good luck.